And welcome back. One of the things that we did last time is, of course, added this targeting reticle for us to do. But one of the things you might notice is that even though it's here, it doesn't necessarily affect our lasers. Our lasers, of course, are still firing off into whatever direction we're steering. We don't actually have like mouse control or anything like that. I'm using my keyboard, but not using the targeting reticle to actually control it. And we may want to kind of give some of that control back to the player, so that way as they're driving around and they're steering and stuff like that to avoid enemies, we can still use the targeting reticle here to help aim and fire. So let's go ahead and set that up by first visiting back to our player here. I'm actually going to bring this canvas back over a little bit so we can see a little more. And what we want to do is go about making a object here that we can actually set off in the distance using our Z coordinate to kind of latch things onto. So in my player here, let's just go ahead and choose to create a 3D object. Let's just choose a sphere here just as a reference point. And we'll just call this our, how about we just use something simple like player target. And I'm just going to make sure that that's not underneath anything particular there. So I'm just going to put that above the ship. Okay, that's good. I just want to, again, make sure it's not part of that player ship because I don't want that to have that same properties. And I want to make sure everything's zeroed out here. And we'll scale this up a little bit here. Maybe we'll try 10 by 10 by 10. Oh, that's a little large. Let's go half the size. We'll try 5 by 5. There you go. That's something pretty decent. And let's just zoom this thing way out here just so we can see it. And again, we can always adjust the size of this because it doesn't really matter the size of this sphere per se, because we're going to end up taking the kind of mesh and stuff off it eventually. But just for now, for our purposes here, we can actually set this up. So let's go into our materials here, and let's actually create a material here for this sphere object. Now, because this is just for debugging purposes, we don't need a fancy material here. We can just go ahead and choose Create Material, and let's just go ahead and give this a color. We can make it red, green, whatever color you choose to do. Let's just call this, I'm going to call this Target Red, just so that you know what that's for. And let's go over to our base map color here, and let's just choose a red color. And again, you can choose whatever red color you want. You just need something visually here that you can use. And I'm just going to go and apply that to my player target. So I can actually just drag that right onto the player target here. And you can see it now has that red color. Now, the way we want to actually go about controlling this is we want to basically have a transform control. And so let's actually go ahead and create a serialized field here. And we're not going to use a rect transform. We're just going to use a regular transform. And we're not going to choose the player position. We actually want the target position. All right, so I'm going to use target position here. And that's, of course, going to keep track of where that sphere, that little ball that we just made is. And again, we can adjust the position of that as we need to as we move into our game. Now, just like we had created a method for process firing and moving the crosshair position, let's go ahead and do a similar one that's called move target position. This is just a quick method here so we can keep track of that. And of course, it says I don't know what this is because we haven't actually created that as a method. So we can go ahead and generate that method. And I'm just going to go ahead and move that so that way it is at the bottom with my other movement here. Just so they're all kind of kept together. And I'll remove this exception. So let's go ahead and actually set this up so we can actually pull this in. Now, basically, we want this to follow our camera around. And there's actually a thing called a ScreenToWorldPoint, which we can actually use that method here in our move target position. That's actually going to make our life really easy. So we don't have to kind of keep track of it because it actually is going to pull in a vector 3, which of course, remember, is going to be X and a Y, Z, that we can actually use to update this transform. And if we look, our thing we have is called target position. So let's go ahead and pull it in. So let's do target position. And we're going to pull in its, let's just go ahead and pull in and saying, oh, we want the position. Is that what we really want here? And the answer is yes, we do want that position, but we don't want to actually pull from the mouse position here. We're going to want to pull from the camera, and we only have one camera here, so we're going to just pull in main, and it's actually going to pull in the transform position. We don't want the actual transform position. Instead, remember, we again have this ability to grab this screen to world point. Now, you notice there's some other screens that pop up here. So, for example, there's viewport point, and there's also point array. That's not the one we want. We want this world point, which is, of course, going to pull that in for us. And this, of course, pulls in, again, a vector 3, but we want to set this using values that we can control rather than just relying on what Unity provides. Now, it has suggested, of course, the mouse position, but we don't want that because, again, we want more control over this. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a vector 3 here. And let's just go ahead and name this our target position. I'm just going to use POS, maybe location. And let's set that equal to a value that we can actually control. And so let's handle that by using a simple way, which of course is a new vector3. And we of course are going to want to plug into this an X and a Y and a Z. Well, those of course we can actually pull in some of those from the actual mouse. And so we're going to use our input mouse position here. And we want to grab the X value. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to grab the Y value. But this is now the reason why we didn't want the Z value, because we don't want it to rely on the Z coordinate for the mouse. Instead, we want some target distance. So wherever we are putting that sphere that we have right now at. And now, of course, notice right now, I was like, I don't know what this is. That's okay. We're going to handle that in just a second. And so let's go up to the top and create a serialized field so we can control that. And so we don't want this. Nope, we want to instead create this as a float value. And we call that, it was target distance. So let's add that in. And for this one, we can go ahead and give it an initial value. I'm going to do something more than just 1 here. I think I'm going to do something more, let's say like 100, just to start out. And again, I can always adjust this later, especially since now I have that serialized field to be able to control that. And so you're probably already guessing, hey, how do we get rid of this other error? Well, we can just copy this target position location, plug it in here to our ScreenToWorldPoint, and boom, all of our errors are gone. So I think we can go ahead and start saying, can we test this out and now see if this works the way we want. So back over in Unity, we can test things out. Of course, we got to make sure we tag everything correctly. So let's go look at our playership. You can see we have here our target position. Right now that is set to none. So let's grab that target that we created earlier and just drag and drop that in there. That now, of course, is going to set there. You can see we have our target distance set to 100. All right, let's go ahead and give this a quick run here. And so you can see here is my ball. You can see where it is showing up here. Let's see how it's showing up. All right, that looks pretty good here. And so I just hit Control-Shift-P here just to pause my game view. And one thing you'll notice is that this does look kind of close here a little bit. So if I adjust this target distance, let's just say if I put it out, let's say 250, to redraw the location of that. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's go to our player target. Let's just try, let's see, we want to be on the ship. There we go. Change it to 250, just to kind of rescale where this is being set to. And so if we rerun that again, you see now it's really far out there. It's a lot smaller, and you can play around again with the value that is going to work better for you. Now, of course, if we fire our lasers, they aren't yet following our sphere here, so that may be something we have to adjust just a little bit. In fact, I might bring my targeting ball here just back in a little bit, because looks like 250 might be just a little too small for my own personal taste. So I'm going to try maybe something like 200. Let's go ahead and give that a quick save. So that's looking a little better. Again, you can play around with it, find the value that works for you. I might, again, adjust that to the value that I want that to be. I'm going to maybe try 175. But I think we're set to go ahead and call this a success here. So that way we can go ahead and next time get us so that way these lasers kind of follow our targeting reticle as we move about the screen.